This is how I made this Kratos bust in Blender. I started off by gathering a lot of references, which is probably the most important part of any project that you will be working on. Your sculpts are just a reflection of how good your references were. So after ticking that box, I started off by blocking out the basic shape of the face. It is really important to proceed with your sculpts progressively and keep sure that everything is low poly initially. This is because sculpting is like problem solving, and the less polygons you have, the less things you have to move around, the less problems you have to solve. So only proceed once you are happy with the basic shapes. Once I got the basic shape, I started adding the main features of the face, like the sockets for the eyes, nose, I made the temple line and the mouth. Now notice that everything over here is still low poly and pretty basic. This allows me to adjust and move things if required. The more the polygons, the more stuff I have to move around, so I just keep everything low poly and only proceed when I've squeezed out as much as I could. Now before proceeding, I looked at my references and made some changes, like the face was a bit too wide, the lips were a bit too thick. So all you need to do is to just look, sculpt, look, sculpt. And it's better to do this low poly rather than adjusting later, which is going to be a pain in the ass. Once happy with everything, I marked the eyelids and made a UV sphere to get the proper curvature of the eye. No need to eyeball this. And once happy, I started to add more details to the models and added more features to make it look like Kratos. Boy! I made another UV sphere for the torso and marked the main muscle groups very roughly. Once again, you can see that this approach is identical, where everything is kept low poly and detail is added only once I'm happy with the previous level. I masked out and cut out a lot of the torso because I wanted it to be a bust. And once I had this shape, I added more geometry and began to sculpt the muscles even more. Once happy, I combined the torso with the head and worked on having the natural transition between the face and the body. After that, I masked an area for the beard and blocked out Kratos' iconic beard. Now with some internal procedure texture in Blender on my brush, I began to pull out the beard to indicate some hair and texture. Now sculpting can be tricky sometimes because your reference is influenced by light, colors and everything, whereas your sculpt is just a plain blank gray whatever matte cap you're using. So I added his red stripes just to get a feel of whether we're moving in the right direction or not. And yeah, I'm happy so far. Now once I got to this stage, I used some alpha textures which I got from the ZBrush library, which is an awesome resource by the way. So just type ZBrush alpha and click the first link and you can get this library for yourself. It is an incredible resource and yeah, you will see me using it further in this video as well. So I added a bit more details and emphasized the muscles a bit more because Kratos is a really bulky guy. And then I proceeded to add the skin texture using the same alpha library. I was really enjoying this and it was all fun until this happened. And me being me, I started adding the details again and pressed Ctrl R after every brush stroke. Also, it is really important to note that these fine details and texture only work if you have a solid base. The reason that they look good is because the base is good. So many people waste their time being Jerry's and all they do is focus on these details while ignoring the shitty base that they have. If you put flowers on shit, it is still shit. So instead of wasting time trying to make your sculpts look better through cosmetics, lighting, rendering, adding textures, focus on learning and honing the basics. If that is something that you're struggling with and you don't know where to start, I have a free head sculpting and anatomy course which is completely step by step. Click the first link in the description to access it. Yeah, enjoy. After the body was time for the base. For that I used a simple cylinder and made a basic block out for the base. I then simply added a lot more geometry and used alpha brushes to add these engravings. Finally, I topped it off with the leathery texture using a leather alpha brush. I share work in progresses and renders on my Instagram and I'm making an effort to grow it as well. So follow me there to stay in tune with me. And yeah, for free courses and a community of serious sculpting artists, click the first link in the description, join right now. Goodbye.